Rocks Are Dumb by Majin Syeekoh. Dumb rocks. Apple Bloom was incredibly bored. She was so bored, in fact, that she was currently counting the various rocks on the apple's apple orchard as she looked out from her window. There was a pile of tiny rocks about 50 yards away. There were various smaller rocks scattered around the farm, which Big Mac would most likely remove. Then there were the larger rocks, impressive in size, that not even Big Mac could remove. Sighing, she looked away from the window and back to her homework. Describe the 3 kinds of rocks. Apple Bloom groaned.
That's a big deal. A rock is a rock. Why are there different kinds?
She stared at the homework sheet some more. Describe the different kinds of rocks.
Well, there's pebbles.
She wrote down pebbles.
And there's skipping rocks.
She wrote down skipping rocks.
And there's stones and boulders.
She wrote both of those down as well. She looked over her homework again, somewhat pleased with the result. She put the homework into her bag.
Apple Bloom, it's time for dinner.
Apple Bloom grunted.
I'll be down in a second,
she said. Applejack seemed to have the best timing. Smiling, she trotted downstairs and took a seat at the table, where Applejack, Big Macintosh, and Granny Smith were seated. Apple Bloom stared down at the bowl in front of her. It was vegetable stew. She grinned. She liked vegetable stew. She dipped her muzzle in and ate the stew. When she was finished, she pulled up her muzzle.
Hey, Applejack.
Applejack lifted her muzzle out of her stew.
What, Apple Bloom? What different kinds of rocks are there?
Oh, Applejack said.
I don't rather know.
Applejack narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brow.
Well, I guess there's pebbles, skipping rocks, stones, and boulders.
Apple Bloom smiled.
That's what I thought. May I please be excused? Yes, you may, Apple Bloom. Thank you for being so polite.
Applejack grinned as Apple Bloom excused herself from the table and went outside. She propped herself up against an apple tree and thought. She thought about a lot of things. Clive, whether or not she'd get her cutie mark tomorrow, and whether or not snails liked her. She most definitely wasn't thinking about rocks.
I mean, why would they even teach us about rock? It's not like we're going to suddenly decide to become rock farmers because of the oh-so-interesting homework assignment we got in primary school about rocks.
Apple Bloom's musings soon turned into frustrated internal rantings.
On top of that, why do they even have to teach us about the stuff they teach us? I mean, calculus? Really? The only pony I know that uses calculus on the regular is Twilight, and she's an egghead. Sure, she may be teaching me cool stuff about potion making, but she's still an egghead. I will not grow up to be an egghead, no siree. I'll probably get my cutie mark in something apple-related and work on the farm until I grow old and die. Become an elegant princess.
Apple Bloom smiled at that thought. A filly could dream, couldn't she?
Apple Bloom, wake up! It's time for school.
Apple Bloom slowly opened her eyes and focused them to see Applejack, school back in Hoof.
What?
Apple Bloom blinked. Applejack shook her head.
You fell asleep outside and we didn't want to wake you.
Oh, okay. Apple Bloom said as she stood up, grabbed the bag and slung it over herself.
See you after school. All right, Trudy Cube. See you after school.
Apple Bloom trotted to the schoolhouse and took her seat, waving to Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo as they walked in. When every pony had entered, Cheerily rapped on the desk.
All right, class, she said. Do I have a volunteer who wants to read the homework assignment to the class?
Apple Bloom raised her head.
I guess I'll go. I doubt that any pony here got more answers than I do.
Apple Bloom raised her hoof. Cheerily scanned the classroom and spotted Apple Bloom's hoof.
Ah, yes, Apple Bloom. Would you like to read your homework to the class?
Yes, I would, Miss Cheerily.
she said as she fished into her bag and pulled out her assignment. Applebloom cleared her throat.
Well, Miss Shirley, I've determined there are 4 kinds of rocks. Pebbles, skipping rocks, stones, and boulders.
The entire class, along with Shirley, stared in shocked silence at Applebloom, who was smiling until she gazed around the room and noticed the weird glances they were giving her.
What'd I say?
She asked.
I've determined that there are 4 different kinds of rocks.
Shirley buried her face into her hoof.
That's exactly wrong. The 3 kinds of rocks are sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. You'd know that if you were paying attention in class yesterday.
What?
Applebloom asked.
If you told us in class, then what the hey was the point of the homework assignment?
Repetition.
Wait, you had us do a homework assignment about what you went over in class just to write down what you said in class?
Yes, Applebloom. That's why I assign homework. To see if my students are paying attention in class.
Applebloom blinked.
Why is it 50% of our grades then?
Shirley smiled.
Because paying attention is important.
But,
Applebloom said,
if I just pay attention in class, then pass all the tests, I'll still fail?
That's exactly right.
Applebloom snorted.
That has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
What?
Shirley asked.
I didn't expect to hear such a sass coming out of your mouth. You're usually such a good student.
You'll have to forgive me, I just woke up.
Tiredness is no excuse for rudeness. Now go sit in the corner.
But the assignment was dumb.
Corner, now!
Applebloom snorted, removed herself from her desk, and put herself in the corner to the chorus of her classmates giggling.
Rocks are dumb.
Hello once again, this is Visual Pony with Comment Time with Visual Pony. And once again, I will remind you that you can support Pony&Wolf Productions through the links down in the description. We have a donation link, we have Patreons, we have a merch store, we have one-time donation links. We have everything you might ever need to actually support us. You can also become a channel member. And believe me, all of these things would really help us. And it would help us to produce more of these stories and keep the lights on around here. Okay, now let me get into this. Oh, God. Believe me, I have had situations when I was in... not a lot of people know this about me, but I was actually in high school at some point. After elementary school, I went to high school. And then my parents divorced, and I had a lot of stress and all that, so I left high school and went to middle school instead. But while I was in high school, I think it was like 5th grade, we had an assignment where they gave us basically a list of words, and we had to write a description of of a path, you know. If you reach that and that path, that and that landmark, then turn right, or at that and that street, go there and there, you know, stuff like that. And I had completely forgotten to do it. I literally had completely forgotten to do it because it was like exam week, and we had like our math exam, our English exam, all of that stuff that week, and I had completely forgotten to do this homework. And then I was sitting there, and I didn't volunteer. Okay, I didn't volunteer to read mine because I didn't have any. But my teacher was a bit of a bitch. She chose just a random student. She went like eeny, miny, mo, you know, and she then chose me to read my homework assignment. And I was like, oh God, I don't have anything. But that would be the 2nd time this week. And I'll get into huge trouble if I have don't have my homework again. You know, because first time she would let pass, 2nd time she would send a letter home with you to your parents, which you had to return to her, signed by your parents. And so I was like, okay, fuck it. I like opened my my notebook to the page where I had written down all those keywords and just made shit up. You know, I just made something up because I knew the structure, how it was supposed to be. And then on the spot, did the entire thing in my head. And then she just looked at me, was like, could you please show me your notebook? I'm like, why? And she's like, well, because I don't believe you actually did your homework. I'm like, I did. I mean, technically I did just then, because I just didn't write it down, you know? Yeah, that was a letter to my father then, because she looked in my notebook, didn't see anything written down. And even though I literally had the same as everyone else, just, you know, I hadn't written it down. I just made it up on the spot. Yeah, that happened. Anyhow, sincerely yours, Visual Pony, and I hope that this story finds you well in body and mind.